Hey everyone, it's Meyore. Today's going to be a little bit different since I made the fatal mistake of setting up multiple tracks for audio and then forgetting to tell my recording software to actually record them, meaning I lost all of my players' audio. So I'll just be giving a brief play-by-play of what happened during the session, so you're all caught up for the next episode. Sorry about that. So in this session, we continue right where we left off previously, with the Talos cult forces in the Manse responding in force after our heroes barged in, interrupted a strange ritual, and started an all-out brawl that almost backfired until our mysterious whispering banshee killed many of the Talos cult forces. So actually starting off in this session, Laucian looks to the south as he sees one of the Talos cultists clasp his hands and then slam them down to the ground, destroying a portion of the wall leading into the room where the ritual was previously taking place, before rushing inside with his boars following close behind. Laucian quickly realizes it was time to get the hell out of Dodge and disengages away from his predicament, rushing past Nyrad and the little twig blight, trying and failing to harm him in his heavy armor, before poofing in and out of existence with a misty step further down the hallway, avoiding the long reach of his viney foes. The cultist previously outside near Laucian rushes towards the house with his boars in close pursuit. Meanwhile, as Laucian rushes past, Tordek narrowly dodges the vines left and right, quickly rushing towards him, trying to squeeze the life out of him as he brings his axe down again and again and again in quick retribution, cutting down the two vine blights accosting him, before backing up into his corner and noticing out of the corner of his eye as a Talos cultist reaches down with electricity crackling between his fingers as he slams his hands down onto the chest of the dead half-orc, casting Revivify as the cultist gasps for air, alive once more. On the northern grounds of the property, Raz peppers the Talos cultist with magic missiles and flees south through a broken doorway leading into a kitchen covered in debris and left to rot, with the angry cultists and boar in hot pursuit. The boar manages to get there first as he slices into Nyrad with his tusk, but Nyrad quickly leaps, grabbing onto the door frame and tumbling over the boar to fire off more magic missiles at the approaching cultists, seething in anger at this point. Back inside, a cultist and boar rush right past Nyrad to chase after Laucian as he cuts down with his longsword, decimating the twig blight trying to harm him, and taking a deep breath, feeling something of a second wind, before instinctively raising his shield just in time to block the sharp tusks of yet another boar charging through the doorway straight at him. Laucian, though, on the brink of death, downs a potion of healing, feeling its restorative effects while moving further down the hallway and barely avoiding a sudden barrage of vines exploding through the doorway as he passes by, and then proceeds to take cover in what he could near the end of the hall. Further south, the banshee wails for these intruders to die as she plunges her spectral hand into the vine blight nearest to her, with her corrupting touch causing it to wither away and die, before noticing Tordek's gaze further south, looking behind herself to notice the newly revived cultist. But before she even has time to react, Tordek rushes through her form, feeling her sense of anger, but also a slight sadness and longing, before rushing ever forward and plunging his axe down into the head of the half-orc, killing him dead yet again. As Tordek yanks his axe out of his dead foe, he actually manages to cleave into the other nearby cultist somewhat, before attacking him as well. The cultist manages to dodge the first swing, but Tordek's axe lands true on the follow-up, before deeply cutting him. The cultist roars in pain as more boars rush into the room behind him, and he calls upon Talos, unleashing a lightning bolt directly at Tordek. But thankfully, due to his sense of danger, Tordek manages to dodge somewhat out of the way. He is still caught by the lightning bolt, but it doesn't hurt as much as it might have. It also makes him feel somewhat electrified, with adrenaline pumping through his veins. But as this happens, the banshee flies through Tordek, giving him that same faint feeling of sorrow and longing as she plunges her hand into the cultist, causing black veins to erupt all around the impact. The half-orc begins to howl in pain as a boar charges straight at Tordek. He manages manages to hold his ground, taking minor cuts from its tusks but wrestling the beast back before unleashing a mighty critical strike with his axe, severing the head of the cultist with one fell swoop and cleaving through the remaining two boars with swing after swing, killing them both and rushing towards the hole in the wall, as Raz did tell him to meet them outside. Meanwhile, Nyrad cuts down the assaulting boar in the hallway just before the cultist and boar that were previously chasing Lausian turn their gaze on him. He blocks the charge from the boar like it's nothing and looks up just in time to see a lightning bolt hurtling towards him from the cultist. His shield is able to absorb some of the blow, and even more is absorbed due to the nature of the blood of his ancestors, the blue dragons. He shrugs off most of the shock from the lightning, dumbfounding the cultist. Further down the hall, vines erupt from the ground all around the Blight and Lausian, but thankfully Lausian manages to deftly cut the vines reaching for his feet, narrowly avoiding being restrained, before quickly casting a minor illusion mimicking the half-orc's voice and commanding the vine blight to kill the boars now, which seems to have worked as it turns its head north to the boar right behind Raz. That, coincidentally, manages to cut into Raz's side with his tusk, and the cultist finally reaches him with a venomous grin and slams his hands down to the ground, trying to thunderwave Raz off of his feet, but somehow Raz holds his ground before smiling right back as he shoves his arcane pistol under the chin of the half-orc and fires a magic missile, turning its head into a red mist as he roars with excitement, being reminded of the old days as he flies away from the boar with his tempestuous magic. Lausian then decides to call upon the necromantic arts, filling himself with a sense of false life as he watches his new soldier chase after the same boar. Unfortunately, the vine blight is too slow and the boar charges after Raz, who narrowly dodges its tusks and stabs the boar in the side with his booming blade, hurting it enough to temporarily phase it and allow himself to retreat further. Back in the entryway of the house, Nyrad moves into a better position, cutting down the boar on one side before following up with a deep slash into the cultist, who retaliates with a mighty thunderwave, blowing the entryway of the house away, but not Nyrad, who managed to hold his ground firm, forcing the half-orc to acknowledge why Garuth chose him. At the same time, Tordek feels the presence of the Banshee in his mind, telling him to finish off these meddling beasts before making his way outside and enjoying a pumpkin and its restorative properties. And not a moment later, Nyrad, without mercy, strikes with a decisive blow, removing the cultist of his head and his foolish words uttered from it, before sinking back into the wall, bordering on exhaustion, just as he hears a mighty boom from outside, as the boar that had attempted to charge Raz yet again collapses on the ground, blood seeping from its ears. Somehow, tired and battered, our heroes have survived another fight, and they all begin to head to the entryway of the manse to collect themselves and discuss what had happened. Lausian does end up having the great idea to command the vine blight to start removing the dead bodies from the manse, which it does, much to the surprise of Tordek and Nyrad. Tordek and Raz decide to begin walking up the stairs to check the second floor, while Lausian and Nyrad fail to chat on the front porch due to Lausian's coldness, as usual. As Tordek nears the final step of the stairwell, though, his gut instinct tells him to leap back just in time as the stairs give out, exposing several sharpened wooden stakes below. Raz and Tordek decide to look for another way up, and they decide to head south where the orcs had previously jumped through a hole in the ceiling. But, of course, Tordek gets distracted by the severed head of his foe that he killed twice. He picks it up, wanting to show off his trophy to Raz, who doesn't pay much mind to this gruesome trophy, but instead to a strange bit of leather poking out from a fold in the cultist's garb. He picks it up and looks over the strange markings etched into what must have been a leather flap ripped from a satchel, but he isn't quite able to make much sense of what it is. He gets that it's a map, but he just can't really make sense of where they are. He hands it off to Tordek, who is able to make much more sense of the map, detailing their current surroundings, and takes a bit of an interest in some notes written in Orcish next to a drawing of 3 lightning bolts that he assumed would probably be not too far north of where they are now. The words said, "Circle of Thunder is key. Ritual must be completed." And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where we ended the session. I apologize for having to do this in this type of format once again, and I promise we won't run into an issue as severe as this again. Live and learn, I say. Anyways, maybe leave a like or comment down below if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.